And that forces you, and I think when you look at all the things that the United States has in front of it, that's why showing that you can do anything. It's why I was a fan of Obama's nuclear summitry. Finally, the administration did pull off something it said it was going to do, and whether it was by a razor-thin margin or not, the healthcare win was a bit like that. But you need to establish the fact that you can achieve things. I think that Obama has got to find some issue in which he can show, like Nixon did, that we have the ability with our allies to change the way global gravity works. And if you can't do that, then we're going to be trapped in a system that eventually runs the United States into a much less and less and less powerful and capable way. If I may quickly comment on the moral leadership issue, I think this is vital. I think that the United States is coming back. My political science mentor, a man named Hans Beerwald, not important, he died this past week, so homage to Hans, but his biggest lesson to me is you really don't know the norms and values of a political system unless you see it operate under stress. And when we were operating under stress in the United States, there were a lot of areas we didn't do so well. One of them, I don't know if Bart Gellman is in the room, but Bart Gellman tells a remarkable story, in fact, about Fran Townsend and about people in the White House and the Bush administration who essentially undermined a lot of what Fran and the president were trying to do. And in the very, very White House we had, set up an alternative power structure that had no transparency or checks and balances related to it. That, when I look at what are the consequences of that long road? Have we recovered from that? I don't know. Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo continue to be issues out there. It's not to say that we're not recovering and making our way back, but it has bred in the minds of people all around the world a question of, will we change, and do we have the capacity to change? And they hear Barack Obama's Cairo speech, and they say, show us the beef. We've heard it, we want to believe, but we don't see the actions, we don't see the sequencing of policy. We see you stuck in the tar baby in Afghanistan, unable to do it here. And I'll just conclude here on this question of war on Islam and is Afghanistan contributing. That's not the issue in my mind. The issue in Afghanistan, to Arab allies in particular, is can we succeed and demonstrate that we have a capacity to do other things. In my view, Afghanistan is a strategic distraction. I joked in the AFPAC group today that when I was in China a few years ago and visiting a friend of mine who was director of policy planning in China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I said, what is China's grand strategy in the world? And he said, how to keep you Americans distracted in small Middle Eastern countries. And I think it's very important to look at the fact that to some degree Afghanistan is not just about the men and women deployed there, not just about fighting the Taliban or the residual forces of al-Qaeda. It's also the question of what has been animated in Iran's appetite. What are the opportunity costs elsewhere of allies that don't count on us as much as they used to because they see us near a breaking point, and foes who are animated. I know Peter's about to cut me off.
Yeah.
So that's, I think I've answered all of them.
Steve,
yes.
I think you've written the agenda for the next 5 conferences right now. Fran, all this sort of lofty stuff, moral leadership, root causes, undereducation, poverty, does it actually matter? Did it matter to you in your day-to-day work of keeping America safe?
You phrased it in such a way as to signal to folks what my response is likely to be. To the John Brennan speech, look, John is a former colleague and I consider a friend. I was mystified by the speech, quite frankly, because it presumes, as lawyers will say, facts not in evidence. The notion that poverty and a lack of education are the underlying root causes, he's lost to me at hello, right? Look at the education of the 9/11 hijackers, and I could go on from there, right? These are incredibly well educated. Look at the Christmas Day attempted bomber, had all the benefits of upper middle class society. And so I don't even understand that. And he should know better because of his experience. Look, I actually think that's a subterfuge for what is, in many respects, they don't want to say it, but what is in many respects a continuity of policy from the prior administration. I try not to say that very often in public because I think they're not doing bad. But Abu Ghraib was a crime, Guantanamo was a policy. this is Guantanamo's there, and not because everybody wanted it, but because it was really hard to close it, and the current administration is finding the same thing. And so, to our colleague who asked about the narrative, I agree with Steve. The question is not, does that contribute to the narrative? In any war, you will find your enemies to take facts that suit them and weave it into their narrative, whether it's accurate or not, and they will use it. And so whether you're talking about Afghanistan or Iraq or any other conflict, they'll use that in their narrative, their way. And so that can't be the driver, not giving them a tool for propaganda. I do worry about our ability to succeed there. That's the key. If we are successful, how do we define success? I think the president's articulated it, especially in the unfortunate events of the last week. We don't want Afghanistan to ever be a safe haven for al-Qaeda again that they can use to launch attacks here in the United States. That's a modest goal, frankly. It's an important but modest goal, because what that means is you're talking about leaving behind not an effective 21st century government. Good thing, that's like solving poverty. I'd put that right up there. But you're talking about a governance process that can protect itself and its people and its territorial integrity. That's a tall enough order. And I think General Petraeus, if anybody can do it, is the person up to it. Look, I think in terms of this hearts and minds argument, it is okay to try and sort of, are we going to use different language? This is the prerogative of the current administration. We're not going to call it a war on terror. What I care about is less the language than clarity. I think we owe our soldiers and our citizens, when you look at the amount of money and effort we're putting in the combating terrorism arena, the duty of clarity, both moral clarity and strategic clarity about what our objectives are. And I don't think it has always been the case. I think as we muddy the language now, we are endangering that clarity of purpose, and that concerns me.
Arif, were you mystified as well by John Brennan's speech?
I was mystified at the fact that he recognized me in the speech. But other than, I think on the issue of the upstream factors, as especially many of the people here who've looked at this, we really don't know why somebody decides to join a terrorist movement and kill other people, especially because there are very different motivations depending on which organization, where it's occurring, why it's occurring. And I think, however, we need to try to figure it out. And we need to try to use different approaches to try to deal with this, what is a very complex problem. Look, we don't know why people become murderers, rapists, robbers, despite the unfortunate numerous times it's happened in the United States and elsewhere. But that doesn't stop us from trying to look at solutions to prevent that from happening. But I think in terms of a couple of the other comments that were made that feed into this is about the narrative of Afghanistan or Iraq. I think it's very important to remember, al-Qaeda did not create this narrative that the West was at war with Islam, or that going into Afghanistan or Iraq was a bad thing. That existed before. There were many people in the United States, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, who were very upset about going into Iraq. The key to their narrative, in my opinion, is that their narrative believes that people should call up and commit violence to sort of protest against this. That is the key factor. And then just one last thing on the gentleman had asked a question about the father of Abdul Muttalib, and saying that the father had gone to the embassy and reported this because he believed in American values. I think it's very important to remember, we do not have a monopoly on the values of not wanting to kill other people. He did that out of a sense of his obligation as a human being, as somebody who didn't want to see his son involved in a horrific act. And that's something that, when it comes to sort of the moral leadership, it's really joining the moral leadership that people exhibit throughout this world every day.